I imagined it would all seem unusual when she returned to this place, the place that had not belonged to her for almost a year. I anticipated some space, perhaps a hint of discomfort or reluctance, yet none was present. As she entered, her smile radiated warmth, and her steps echoed a comforting familiarity. The way she casually discarded her shoes and flung her bag onto the sofa spoke volumes. It was as if the moments apart had simply melted away, leaving our connection untouched by the passage of time. She embraced me, radiating warmth from the sun, the scent of sunscreen, and that familiar fragrance that never failed to bring a smile to my face whenever I strolled by her room. "Oh God, I long for you deeply," she murmured softly, her hands tenderly cradling my face. Before she even laid a hand on her suitcase, we uncorked a bottle of wine. Then Michael, my husband, strolled into the living room, a blend of politeness and curiosity in his demeanor. He'd heard countless tales about her vibrant life and delightful disorder. Yet, I understood he could never have truly envisioned her in this moment, in this place beside me, as if the world could change in an instant. And it would. Everything was on the brink of transformation. We just hadn't seen it coming yet. It wasn't long before she infused every corner of the house with her essence, not with objects, but with her very being. Following a delightful and warm dinner, she playfully insisted on handling the dishes, teasing that. Since I had prepared the meal, I had earned a break for the evening. "Does he typically get evenings free, or is he the one doing all the work too?" she asked, casting a playful look at Michael. Sponge still in hand, her eyes glimmering with a hint of mischief that suggested there was more to her words than mere jest. Michael let out a slightly uncomfortable laugh. I chuckled more heartily than needed. Yet, a tension stirred within me, a whisper of something elusive, a feeling I couldn't fully define. After dinner, I offered her one of my cozy robes, the type I reserve for those serene, peaceful weekends. She slipped it on right away, lingering in the doorway, her hair still damp, her skin alive with the fragrance of soap. As she re-entered the living room, I caught a glimpse of a Michael expression. He remained utterly still. He was open about it. I remained silent. He didn't either. Yet I witnessed it. Every tiny detail matters. The gaze that held on a moment longer than expected. The remarks dance between lightheartedness and sharpness. The movements that seemed to carry a deeper meaning. They intertwined within the space that existed among the three of us. Delicate and smooth, yet challenging to unravel. Uncertainty loomed as I sensed something deeper was unfolding. This was no longer merely a return home. It was the dawn of an opportunity that none of us had ever envisioned before. When she playfully proposed that the three of us share a bed like we did back in our single days. A mix of seriousness and jest. In her tone, I couldn't help but laugh. Michael joined in the laughter, and I replied, "Absolutely." In part due to the wine, I didn't give it much thought back then. As the lights faded into darkness, we found ourselves enveloped in a profound stillness, each moment stretching into the next, curled up on my side. I gazed at the wall, my arms hugging myself tightly under the warmth of the blanket. Behind me were two distinct rhythms of breath, one belonging to the man I chose to marry, the other from the woman I once embraced. as family. Silence enveloped the room, yet it was the quiet that rendered everything strikingly vivid. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation, and I could sense the unfolding drama without even glancing back. The atmosphere grew dense, a palpable warmth shifting just behind me. She glided through the space, each movement deliberate and measured, as though she had pondered every action before taking it. The blanket moved ever so slightly, a subtle shift that revealed a connection had been established, deliberate and unopposed. Then I heard him exhale softly, almost surprised, a kind of breath I'd never heard from him before, not out of exhaustion, but surrender. A heart raced within me. Yet I remained steadfast, not turning away. There was no necessity for that, I was aware. Yet a shift occurred, not from her, but from him. The tales unfold. A subtle shift, barely noticeable, as though he were extending his hand towards me, and then hidden away under the blankets. His hand gently grazed my own. And he didn't take it, just brushed against it, just enough for me to feel that I was the one he had chosen. In that shadowy space among the three of us, a realization dawned that had previously eluded me. I played an active role. I was never on the periphery. I found myself woven into the fabric of this experience. And that silence, that thick, charged silence between the three of us, it was not a barrier. It was a beckoning call. It's unclear who took the initial step. Perhaps it was he. Perhaps it was my doing. Perhaps it was her. The one who, from start to finish, had consistently been the soft whisper that drew everything close, never hurrying, never imposing. But one thing I can say with certainty is that when I turned around, everyone remained right there. Calmness prevailed. No surprise. A heavy silence enveloped the three of us, where our eyes held on to each other a bit longer and our breaths became deeper and more measured, as if we were crossing an unseen boundary together. The memory of that first touch is vivid in my mind. It came from neither of them. The origin was me. A solitary finger glided over the delicate skin of her wrist, moving gently, as though I were exploring the depths of my own feelings. It would have been nice if she hadn't recoiled. She gently tilted her head, her eyes locking onto mine, not with shock or doubt, but with an unusual and serene warmth. Then he arrived, his hand still clasping mine, but now with a gentler grip, a gentle reminder that he remained by my side, steadfast and present, even as her essence enveloped the space around us. Silence enveloped the room. It wasn't necessary. She nestled in, closer, the shape of her form softly aligning with his back, yet her gaze remained fixed on me. I leaned in closer, reaching out to him, not to possess, but to connect. We began to step into the narrative. 3 breaths, weaving a rhythm together. In a cozy room, 3 souls find themselves sharing a single bed, each with their own tale to tell, weaving a tapestry of experiences under the same roof. Undefined limits. There's a void where guidance should be. There was a gentle, unvoiced connection that enveloped us, a shared presence that assured no one stood solitary. I expected to be overwhelmed, embarrassed, and adrift. Yet what enveloped me was an unexpected sense of tranquility. It felt like after all this time, I had finally been welcomed back into the narrative of my own existence, not out of obligation, but from a place of authenticity. And that was an experience I had never fully grasped until this moment, in the gentle whispers and subtle movements on the cozy mattress. A realization dawned upon me. We were all in it together, no one attempting to distance themselves. Everyone remained calm, fully aware of the unfolding events around them. The gentle brush of fingers, the fleeting looks, shared the harmony of inhalations, all whispered, a silent acknowledgement. I recognize your presence. And in that stillness, for the first time in ages, I experienced a profound sense of being here and now. I once believed that the sense of belonging was solely found in clear-cut connections, like those between spouses, closest friends, or family members. As I lay between these two individuals, one rooted in my history and the other in my current life, I realize that the bonds we share often transcend labels. At times, it simply requires a synchronized breath, a connection that speaks volumes without words, a fleeting instant cherished without resistance. And I felt no remorse, and that filled me with fear. It wasn't a lack of understanding about limits. Rather, it was the awakening to the fact that I had lived so much of my life within a narrow space where every feeling had to be molded to conform to a certain character, a partner, a confidant, the anchor that holds the home together. In this very moment, I was simply myself, unfiltered, unburdened. In their unique perspectives, they perceived me differently than Michael ever had. The path ahead is uncertain, perhaps to create some space, perhaps to a different evolution, but one thing I know for certain, I refuse to lead a life that requires me to diminish myself to belong. If someone were to inquire about the moment that truly made me feel acknowledged, I wouldn't point to the wedding or an extravagant getaway. In the stillness shrouded in darkness, I extended my hand, and it was met with a response that lingered in the air between us. The following morning, rays of sunlight danced through the curtains, a soft yet unmistakable nudge to awaken the day. All was transformed. I found myself nestled between them, our breaths intertwining in a moment heavy with unspoken words. As I moved, just a bit, Zach averted his gaze, and she, already alert, caught my eye for a fleeting moment, remaining silent. There was no need for her to do so. Not a single one of us did. That moment was a turning point for us all, and in an instant, the sense of nostalgia washed over me once more. Here I am once more, sensing the unfamiliarity in my own surroundings. Throughout the day, I wandered through the house as if I were a stranger in someone else's tale. Each space, each item appeared to resonate with the inquiries I had yet to summon, the bravery to confront. Is my heart drawn to Michael? Am I genuinely experiencing love? And if not, then what I discovered that night, was it a deep connection, or merely a way to flee from solitude? There was no fault to find with Zach. I held no resentment towards her. I held myself accountable for allowing the quiet to linger, for permitting the emptiness within me to expand so much that even the slightest touch of intimacy could enter and seem like a rescue. Yet I realized that no bond could mend a shattered base. It merely conceals it. And when the curtain finally falls, I find myself confronting the reality that remains. In this union, I find myself lost, unsure of my own identity. As I lingered at the dining table, my gaze fell upon Michael's morning coffee cup, a silent witness to the unfolding tales of our day. His presence on our wedding day was filled with such tenderness. On those afternoons, he would repair the window latch, fully aware of my fondness for sitting there with a book in hand. Everything was a choice. But perhaps at some point, he and I ceased to connect in the places that truly counted. The essence of emotion, I've come to realize that time is essential for me. It's not about selecting one over the other. It's about rediscovering who I truly am. For without a clear understanding of my true desires, every decision I make, regardless of how perfect it appears, will only take me further away from where I belong. I spent the entire afternoon in the backyard, a space that once felt like my refuge. Before life became so complicated, Zach had grown quiet, his words now few and far between. He subtly averted his gaze each time our paths intertwined. She began to gather her belongings, expressing her desire not to linger too long. Yet I was aware of the reality. Everyone was holding their breath, eager to discover the path I would take next. Michael returned home after the sun had set that evening. He placed his briefcase on the ground and gazed at me intently, as if a question lingered on his lips. Yet he struggled to find the right words to start. "Are you all right?" he inquired gently, his tone weary and subdued. I nodded, but deep down, it felt like the threads of my reality were unraveling. That gentle feeling, why did it ache so deeply as the night unfolded? Following a dinner filled with unspoken words, I stepped into the living room where Zach awaited my arrival. I found myself seated opposite him, my fingers clutching the chair's edge tightly. "Zach," I started. What transpired between us was not a mere misunderstanding, I am certain of that. However, if we allow our emotion to guide us too much, we might find ourselves drifting away from who we truly are. He gazed at me, his eyes brimming with sorrow, yet also a deep sense of comprehension. He said it calmly without a hint of bitterness. "You're choosing my dad." "No," I shook my head. "I'm prioritizing myself, embracing clarity. This journey begins with being open, no more hiding, no more sneaking around, and no more causing pain to others." I made my way back to the bedroom where Michael sat, cradling the cup of tea he had prepared for us both. I settled next to him, and after what felt like ages, I extended my hand and grasped his. "Michael," I softly said, "I want us to share our truths about the space between us, about the moments I've allowed to fade, and about the things I need you to understand." He paused before replying, but as he softly held my hand, I realized that my choice wasn't about another person. It was about embracing myself, about finding the bravery to start anew, regardless of the company or the setting. That decision held immeasurable value. It was a surprise to me that sharing all my thoughts with Michael would lead to such a wave of comfort. While I didn't delve into every nuance I shared with him, the struggle within the instances of vulnerability and the bond with Zach that had blurred the boundaries. He remained quiet throughout, without a single interruption or outburst, his expression marked by a profound sorrow, the sort that comes from a deep understanding of a long-lost significance. I should have realized it earlier, Michael finally admitted. I believed that by ensuring your needs were met and everything was in order, it would be sufficient to keep you by my side. His voice carried a weight, calm and measured, as if he were unraveling the complexities of the situation alongside everyone else. I gazed at him. The man I had once cherished, the one I had chosen, and in his eyes I perceived something genuine, a subtle endeavor to salvage what was left of our connection. The following day, Zach embarked on a new chapter, stepping out into the world on his own. With a quiet resolve, he departed, leaving only a brief message in his wake. I appreciate the decision you made, and regardless of everything, I'm grateful for your honesty about our feelings. I absorbed the words quietly, my eyes brimming with emotion. I hadn't merely parted ways with a companion or a friend. I had released a profound well of emotion I never thought I would experience. Michael and I found it challenging to reconnect as we once did. In the quiet moments, there were stretches of silence. Evenings, when he turned away in sleep and I chose not to draw him near. Yet an unspoken change lingered in the air. After a long time, we started to engage in meaningful conversations with one another. What's on your mind today? Feeling weary? Could we explore alternative approaches? Even a small amount, and within that truth, a transformation occurred that would last forever. Not to forget the past, but to move ahead into a more truthful present with ourselves and with one another didn't create a divide between us. Instead, he reflected our true selves, compelling us to confront our past with clarity, honesty, and a newfound bravery we had never experienced before. On a morning draped in clouds, Zach set off on his journey. I lingered by the window, observing as his car glided gently down the serene street, vanishing behind a row of trees. There was a silence that spoke volumes, a moment, suspended in time, marked by a single penetrating gaze that held a world of unspoken oceans. A gaze that encapsulated all that had transpired, all that remained unspoken, and all that would forever linger beyond expression. From that moment on, Michael started rising with the sun. He brewed a pot of coffee for the two of us. He was quiet, yet each morning, the way he set the mug before me carried a deeper meaning. He had moved beyond merely fulfilling his duties as a husband. He was discovering the art of being truly engaged. Our weekends began to fill with shared strolls, each step weaving a new chapter in our journey together. Once at the market, he reached for my hand, a small gesture, one I hadn't felt from him in so long. In that moment, my heart stirred, not due to something new, but because something old had quietly returned. Yet the quiet lingered on. There were nights I lay awake staring at the ceiling, recalling Zach's eyes, his voice, the warmth of his hand in mine, so vivid it compelled me to turn toward Michael, just to ground myself in the reality of being with the man I once chose. Yet the void seeped in. Regardless, not due to lingering feelings for Zach, but because I had ventured into an emotional realm previously unexplored. And now I faced the challenge of releasing it. Michael was aware. He never inquired yet. He was aware, and I sensed he was grappling with a deep division within, not due to my betrayal, but because he had once held the conviction that he was sufficient. Now he realized that true fulfillment isn't about sacrificing it all. It's about recognizing the moments to pause and genuinely hear. We've moved on from what we once were. Perhaps that moment will always remain just out of reach. Yet with each passing day, we reaffirm our bond, not because we have to, but from a deep-seated understanding that true love often involves the journey of forgiveness. For both the one we cherish and for ourselves, time lingered as though the chasm between Michael and me was too vast to bridge with mere words or a comforting touch under the stars. One afternoon in mid-month, as the last light of day poured through the kitchen window, Michael strolled in while I was chopping onions and asked, "Can you show me how to make that soup you prepared the other day?" I nearly chuckled, not due to the question itself, but because, for the first time in ages, he was willing to embrace something personal and close. In the cozy little kitchen, we found ourselves side by side, the air filled with the sounds of chopping vegetables and the gentle simmering of broth as we observed the steam dance upward from the pot. In the quiet moments, two souls navigate the path to rediscover a harmony that once resonated deeply within them. I chose not to mention Zach. Michael remained silent, yet an implicit bond existed between us. The past lingered a shadow that couldn't be dismissed, yet it was a tale that didn't require retelling. There are moments that transcend language, as the heart understands without needing to speak. Michael began to extend invitation for movie nights once more, as well as for serene evening strolls, when the breeze had calmed down. And I discovered that he was finding his way back to loving me once more, not the partner he had come to know, but the figure before him now, intricate, marked by her past once adrift, yet striving to navigate her path once more. On a fateful evening at the theater, he leaned in and softly brushed his fingers against mine. He leaned in and whispered, "I'm not sure if things will ever return to what they were, but I still want to discover how to remain." I glanced at him in the shadows and gave a subtle nod. I've discovered that love isn't solely about intense feelings or extravagant vows. At times, it's about being side by side in quietude, enjoying a modest meal, and acknowledging that certain days will be challenging, yet opting to grasp each other's hand regardless. And for me, that's all I need. One morning, as I poured my coffee and looked out at the foggy window, a surprising thought struck me. I was breathing more easily, not because every issue had found its resolution, but because I had finally embraced my own emotions. The days spent entwined in personal struggles filled with unvoiced realities and sidelong looks gradually transformed into a calmer, more sincere cadence of existence. Michael and I never returned to the way things used to be. When hearts have transformed, the past becomes a tale untold. Yet we discovered a way to perceive one another anew as two souls who had previously drifted apart in quietude and were now making the conscious decision to remain together. He understood that I had strayed from my path. It was clear to me that I had faded away in the hustle and bustle of his hectic existence. Yet we both grasped this truth. Love transcends the idea of perfection. It's a tale of bravery where one chooses to retrace their steps instead of taking the easy route of departure. I've let go of any resentment towards Zach, and I embrace my moments of vulnerability. Can you share what transpired? I won't dispute that, but I've discovered how to release it, not to erase it, but to embrace a sense of freedom once more. In the tapestry of our shared past, I found it in my heart to let go of the years when I felt like a shadow beside him. And I found it in my heart to let go the woman who once longed to be noticed, to feel the pulse of life once more, even if just for a fleeting moment. Every morning I brew coffee for two, not from obligation or compliance, but as a gentle expression from someone who has rediscovered the warmth of love with genuine intent and no strings attached. I decide to remain not out of obligation, but because for the first time in years, I feel courageous enough to rise from the ashes. Alongside the man who once caused me pain, and with the part of myself I had almost lost touch with. Perhaps what lingers in our minds isn't merely the mistakes we've committed, but rather the unspoken truths we hold on to for far too long. Elena had her flaws. She experienced love, encountered obstacles, wrestled with self-doubt. Yet amidst it all, she discovered the strength to confront reality, embrace forgiveness, and above all, heed the whispers of her inner self. This narrative doesn't aim to celebrate errors or idealize a broken union. It's a soft nudge that we all might stray from our path, yet if we hold on to truth and compassion, then affection, even if it's been through trials, can be restored anew. If you've ever felt unseen in your own journey, if you've ever found yourself balancing on the line between logic and feeling, I hope this tale serves as a reminder that you are not alone. We'd love to hear your tales in the comments below. Have you ever found yourself in a position where you needed to let go of past grievances? Can a marriage truly mend after experiencing profound hurt? And if you find reflections of yourself in these subtle narratives, those that whisper rather than shout and connect deeply, remember to hit like subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss what unfolds next. We appreciate your company throughout this journey. We'll cross paths once more in a different tale, another sorrow, yet it remains you, it remains me, softly, attuned and mending.